After the title, the most important part is the abstract. It is important because after the title, what appears is the abstract, and abstract is available to everybody. So, when a prospective reader tries to find a paper, locates it in the Google search, clicks it, he or she gets a page in which the title is there, the author names are there, and the abstract is there. And the abstract is normally not behind the paywall. So, you do not have to pay in order to look at the abstract. So, people look at the abstract, read the abstract to figure out whether to read the paper or not. So, people would download the paper, people would ask their libraries to get the paper only if the abstract arouses the attention. So, the abstract is our gateway into the mind of the reader, our scope to arouse interest of the reader, and anybody working in the field should get from the abstract what is the content of the paper. An abstract is normally around 250 words, or as advised by the journal. Some journals allow a relatively longer abstracts, some journals expect shorter, but 250 words is sort of a ballpark figure. Now, how do you write the material in such a short span? You have to remember that the abstract has to convey to the reader the following questions. Basically, say the reader will expect to know from the abstract what I have done. Would like to know that. Okay. How did you do it? How did you do it means, is it the result of an experiment, is it the result of a simulation, is it the result of a theoretical work, derivation of a formula or something like that. So, how did you do that? And then he would like to know what is new. That is so far not known, what is new. And why is it interesting? I have done something, that does not mean it has to be interesting. So, why is it interesting? Or if the result is true, then what are the ramifications? So, more or less these are the things that a prospective reader will expect to know after having read the abstract. So, you see the way you have to present the abstract is in a very short, every sentence is the shortest possible sentence, but do not write that in the telegraphic way by avoiding the a and the no. It has to be correctly written proper sentences, but you have to include the answers to these questions. Okay. You have to remember that the person who will read the abstract may not read the full paper, and therefore, do not consider the abstract as a part of the paper. The abstract has to stand alone. A person may read the abstract and nothing else in the paper. By reading the abstract, he or she might understand that it is not of my interest, and therefore, I will not read the paper. So, it has to stand on its own. What does it mean? A, it will mean that in the abstract you cannot refer to some part of the paper. In section 3 I show that no, you cannot say that, because the person who is reading the abstract is not reading section 3, might not read section 3. You will not be allowed to refer to some equation that comes later in the paper. Equation 25 in the paper shows that, no, you cannot say that. You cannot even cite a paper. You cannot even cite a paper. That means, in the main body of the paper there will be citations, there will be, you will refer to other people's work, but in the abstract you cannot do that. You can do that in somewhat rare cases where the reference to some earlier work is crucial to understand what you are doing. Say you are performing an experiment in order to test a hypothesis, and the hypothesis is in that paper. So, in this kind of a situation you might have to write a citation, but in that case you cannot simply write like this, because this is completely stated in the rest of the paper, but the reader is not reading that. The abstract has to stand alone, and therefore, this has to be written as in the square bracket. You have to write the whole thing, say comma, suppose it is written by some A. B. Das. Volume 26, page and year, something like that. The name of the author, the journal name, the volume, the page number and the year, that completes the citation, gives complete information. So, you have to, in the abstract itself, give this complete thing, not like that. This kind of citation is allowed in the main body of the paper, not in the abstract. In the abstract, you cannot write a displayed equation, even though you might think that this is the main result of the paper, you cannot write a displayed equation in the abstract. So, abstract has to be a single paragraph, you cannot break the paragraph even. So, it has to be a single paragraph about 250 words, it should answer these questions, and it has to stand alone, and you cannot include any displayed equation, you cannot include any citation, you cannot say that you cannot refer to a section or an equation or a table or a chart or a figure in the main body of the paper, because you have to assume that the person who is reading the abstract might not read the whole paper. So, it has to be a stand alone material, and it should be written that way. You have to avoid all superfluous expressions and words. So, what I do normally is that after having written the abstract, I read it carefully and try to read each word and try to figure out, ask myself if that word is needed. And if I find that if I drop this word, it does not diminish the substance of the abstract, then I drop that. So, similarly, words, collection of words in order to can be simply stated as to, that way shorten it as much as possible. The abstract should be the shortest possible expression of the paper that you are writing. It should be written in such a way so that you cannot remove a single word from the abstract without diminishing its substance. That is why writing the abstract is also a very difficult thing. One has to practice again and again writing a paper. Normally, when I started writing papers, I would write an abstract, cut it, write an abstract, cut it, and that would go 25, 26 times, and only then I would be able to sort of satisfy myself is this is a acceptable abstract. So, writing an abstract is a rather difficult, but very necessary pursuit. So, as I said, the main purpose of the abstract is to help the reader decide whether to read the paper or not. And therefore, it should be able to excite the reader's imagination and expectation from the paper, and he or she should get a very clear idea of what this paper says. If you have obtained a result, then do not be afraid of, or a very common mistake is to state the result only in the conclusion of the paper. No, in the abstract itself, and when I come to the introduction, I will say that introduction also, you should state what is the main result of the paper is. So, in this paper we show that kind of statement. You should use a statement of that kind, so that the reader gets very clear in his head what ultimately the outcome of this paper is. So, after you have written the abstract comes the body of the paper, and the body of the paper is normally divided into a few sections, except for those papers that are called letters. Letters are short papers, normally within 4 and 5 pages, and in letters you do not need to sectionalize, you need to break up into sections. It can be one continuous flow of narration, but in a normal paper of a normal size means something like 8 to 12 pages, and in those papers it will be divided into sections. Out of the first section is the introduction. The introduction actually is the next most important part, because when a person has downloaded the paper, then the first thing he or she reads is the introduction, and by reading the introduction the person tries to figure out whether he or she will read the whole of the paper, because everybody's time is precious. So, the person might decide that only a particular section is of my interest and I will read only that, or maybe a graph, maybe a chart is of my interest, so I will only refer to that. And so, the introduction should actually guide the reader. I will come to the details of the introduction in the next class, because it will take a little more time than I have in today's class remaining. So, I will talk about introduction in the next class, but in the body of the paper, then after the introduction comes the different sections. The first section is introduction, other sections then, and finally it is the conclusion, and then the acknowledgement. And then the references. Now, the sectionalization, you have to decide how you break your material into various sections, so that each section has a story to tell, and the whole paper has a wholesome story to tell. So, this is the way of writing the paper, that you have to sectionalize, each section has a specific content, and then you have to write in the conclusion. Now, if you read newspapers, good newspapers, then you would notice one important thing. Suppose a news item takes say 3 columns and then maybe continue to the 4th page or something like that, but you would notice the first paragraph itself is such that you get more or less a complete idea of the whole story from the first paragraph, only a few lines, and then they go on elaborating things. So, it is not that they start from the start, and then after having read the whole thing you get full idea. The first paragraph sort of gives a clear idea of what I am trying to tell, and the same applies to the introduction. The first paragraph of the introduction is the first thing that the reader reads, and that should tell A, what is the area of or what is the problem that you are attacking, and it should arouse the interest of the reader to go on. Because remember, everybody has shortage of time and everybody is trying to optimize the amount they read. So, everybody is trying to find out whether what I am reading is worth reading or not, and that information needs to be conveyed through the first paragraph of the introduction. It should rouse the reader's interest, has to be written in that way. Now, I will again detail things in the introduction, but in the introduction the following things need to be covered. I will detail later. The introduction has to tell the reader what is it all about. The introduction has to tell the reader what is already known about that particular question, and that is included in the literature survey. Then the introduction has to show that after these are known, what remains unknown, what is the question being asked in this paper. That question has to be something, after having read the literature survey, the reader has clear in his mind that this is the question that is yet unanswered, and then the paper, the introduction clearly spells out that this is the question that I am addressing in this paper. Then it has to say how you are trying to address that question. Are you doing an experiment? Are you developing some simulation? You have developed some code and doing some simulation, or are you proving a theorem, or what are you doing in order to get an answer to the question that you asked. And finally, you have to say in again I am repeating this issue, that do not keep the main conclusion out of the paper to be stated in the conclusion section here. No, the main outcome of the paper should also be stated in the introduction also, and it has to be in a very concrete language. In this paper we study the property of, that is not a exciting language. The proper language is that in this paper we show that, we prove that, we demonstrate that. That means you demonstrate this, and the reader will be interested to know what you have demonstrated and how you have demonstrated, what is the result. But if you vaguely say that in this paper we study the property of gallium arsenide, then the reader has no clue as to what ultimately it contains. So, avoid general statements, make concrete statements, we prove that. And finally, the last section, last part of the introduction is where you tell the reader how you are presenting this paper, that means the outline of the paper. This section, section 1 is the introduction, section 2 contains this, section 3 contains this, section 4 I prove that, section 5 we describe the experimental apparatus, section 6 we describe the results of the experiment, and so on and so forth. So, how you have presented, how you have broken up this paper, how you have presented it, that needs to be the last section of the introduction. In relatively shorter papers, the letters, as I said, this part, that means describing how you have organized the rest of the paper, this part may be omitted because of the brevity. You need to be brief in such papers. Okay. So, that is the general outline of the introduction, and then comes the different sections in which you would either develop a model and then show what the model gives in terms of simulation, and then what the experimentally testable outcomes are. if you do the experiment, then describe it. If you are not an experimentalist, you expect others to do the experiment, then state exactly what can be experimentally tested. So, that way it carries on. And finally, you have to state the ultimate take home messages in the conclusion section, and then you have to acknowledge those who are not among the authors, but who have in some way or other helped in the course of this research. So, that is how we organize this. Okay. I will come to the details of each section in the next class, especially starting with the introduction section, because there are things in the introduction section that needs to be elaborated.